Good morning, everyone. This is Fran Lewis. This is MJ Network. MJ in memory of my sister, Marcia Joyce, who put me to task and made me do this. And I am so glad that Melanie is here because the world no longer memory. And I got up this morning and reread it to make sure I got it straight. This is so fantastic. And as an educator myself, I can understand how your character felt sharing a room and all that she went through. Yeah. And this is great. And tell us why you decided to write this. And it says, what was your impetus for creating this debut novel and the primary plot? What's the history behind it? Because you said you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, well, when I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and the novel is set in Arlington, and I I was very affected in my childhood by
Uh-huh.
this controversy that was going on about building Interstate 66. It was going to slice right through Arlington
Mhm.
and and my street, and so my parents were very involved in the protests against the road, and um, it the Arlington before the road and Arlington after the road were very different places. Even though Arlington was part of DC and and now quite urban, it was a smaller town kind of place when I was young, and because I was so affected by this change, I wanted somehow that to be the background of the story.
It is. I grew up in the South Bronx in a very tough neighborhood in an apartment that was big enough for a thumb. We lived with my grandparents because my parents couldn't afford a house or anything. So I was lucky because my grandmother took care of me. My mother was very tough, and I went to school in the South Bronx, and I just didn't know it was tough. Didn't bother me at all. And when I got to junior high school, I weighed 93 pounds. I weighed 200 pounds at that point. So nobody started with the heaviest girl, and I was on all the basketball teams. So I know growing up in the Bronx can be tough. Growing up in an area like that, and fighting for what you think is right is even better. So when you introduce your character, what was the danger that you created in the first scene between the first two characters?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
In the first scene, there was a problem between the two characters. What happened between the two girls?
Oh, the first scene is not.
Yeah,
It doesn't have two girls. There's a prologue, and then
yeah,
the opening chapter is when Sarah is applying for
yeah. The
uh,
school.
a job.
Well, they have the one in 1974. You went back to the past a lot. What was the significance of going back to Suzanne found herself with a free pass for going that? Let me tell you, she was wild.
Suzanne was her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one flashback. The novel operates between two time frames. 1986 is the primary um, setting, and there are some flashbacks to 1976
Yeah.
and to 1977. Um, the the main reason for that is because when Sarah, who's 18 in 1976, she's a senior in high school, she witnesses a murder, and
Hmm.
the boy that she's with convinces her not to report it. And for 10 years after that, because of her failure to do what she knew she should have done, she's haunted by it. She feels very guilty. And so in 1986, she returns home to Arlington to apply for a job and as a high school teacher. And as they're leaving the school, she looks into the gym and she
Hmm.
sees the guy that she knows was the one that committed that murder. And he's a teacher at the school. So now she knows she's going to be starting a job where every day she sees this guy, and she struggles with what to do because there's she knows it's him, but she has no proof. And she decides that she's going to find some way to prove that he's the one.
I know what you're saying. It's funny because my mom belonged to a temple, and the rabbi asked me to go out with the cantor.
Mm.
Yeah, mistake. And I'm not stupid. So we went out for dinner, for religious dinner, and he was sitting too close to me. So I said, "You need to move away because I can't eat and you're making me uncomfortable." When I got home to my apartment, I told him he didn't have to ride me up. He rode me up. I went to the bathroom and he just robed his whatever when I came out and I kicked him out. I have a good left foot. I said, "I can't believe that you would be so ridiculous." When I called the rabbi, he said, "Well, you know, it's your fault." I said, "Not my fault. You told me to go out. These things happen and they're wrong. They shouldn't." And the fact that she saw him makes it kind of hard because you don't know if he's going to do something to hurt her in the school also, or to badmouth her in the school. And the guy that she saw was the gym teacher, right?
Right.
He
Well,
was
he's
the,
a history and PE teacher, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So now we have one of my other characters. I spelled the name right this time. Who is Devlin, and what was his primary purpose in this story?
Um, when she's in high school, Devlin is like,
Yeah,
he's the boy that everybody knew in high school.
yeah,
He's the one that's good looking and popular, and all the girls are hot for him. And she's kind of a shy nobody. And when he suddenly starts paying attention to her, he's she's flabbergasted by that. She doesn't know what to make of it, but she's easily bowled over by his charms, and she starts hanging out with him every evening and goes out for drives with him in his Camaro. And so he is the one that is with her when they witness this murder.
yeah.
And when she returns to Arlington 10 years later, he is a married man. His wife is expecting a baby,
Yeah.
and she re-encounters him at their 10-year reunion and becomes somewhat involved with him again. So
Sometimes you get too addicted, and that's bad.
yeah,
And
that's
I know from other people, from just in general, just watching the news and everything, with this sexual abuse and guys trying to get girls to do things that they shouldn't be doing. Sometimes you just go out with somebody just because you want to be popular. And that's the sad part about it. So the story really brings to light a lot of true life issues that are happening in the news today
true. Hmm. Yeah.
with all of it. That's why I read it and I couldn't put it down. Now, Sarah, the primary character, reacts to events and that night haunted her. What about her past created that you want people to remember?
About Sarah's past.
Sarah, her and her mom, especially. Her and her mom in 1974. Her and her mother weren't that.
Well, she had an
Mm,
she had a tragic, life in her early life in that she was very close to, growing up. She was very close to her father,
mm,
and when she was quite young, her father died suddenly of a heart attack, and it happened right after one of the giant protests and rallies about the highway, and she always associated um, what happened with that. She was so upset by it that it brought on the heart attack. So she lost her father. She was also very close to her sister, and then
mm.
her sister is killed tragically in a car accident. And so she's left with just her mom. And she and her mom have never been particularly,
Yeah.
and so part of the story is them sort of renegotiating their relationship and sort of finding each other um, in later, in later life.
I know how that feels. When I lost my sister, I lost everything.
Um,
It's a tragic story. I don't want to say it on the air, but somebody caused her to be gone. And it's sad because if my sister were here, everything would be so much better. The only thing I'm blessed with is that she left me with her daughter and her son, and I have my nieces and nephews, and I get to spoil them. And anytime there's a problem, they know who to call. So at least I'm not that, but I know it's hard, especially when my father died out of nowhere. And then my sister died out of nowhere, and then my mother-in-law died right after. And Jeff's mom was the most wonderful person, so I know how that feels. So how
yeah.
did you, I didn't have to apply for my teaching job. The assistant principal was my mother's friend and hired me on the street. Shouldn't have listened. So how did you create the school the scene in the school where she's applying for the job? Because they ask a lot of questions and they want to know whatever, but I got my job because of my mother, and the principal made sure that I was tortured the first year with 36 discipline problems in sixth grade. That's okay. They survived, sort of. So how did you create the job interview? Because that's hard to stand in front of a principal and answer all those questions and tell them why you deserve to be there.
Well, I was a teacher up until 1922. I mean, 2022. And that's when I retired. But, I'd been through the job interview process
Uh-huh.
myself. And the school that Sarah graduates from and then that she applies to 10 years later as a teacher is essentially it's the school that I went to. I changed the name in the novel just because since I'm kind of making
Yeah,
nefarious things going on there, I didn't want the actual school to be sullied by that. But I was very familiar with the public high school process and getting hired and what it's like to teach in a public high school in Arlington.
I went to school in a public high school in the Bronx, and I was lucky because the principal, my last name was the same as a famous oral surgeon who was my cousin.
Oh,
And the principal knew my cousin, and after that, I didn't have to worry. Of course, I became his secretary, his UFT liaison, and everything. But it was growing up in a tough school. Columbus High School was really, you wonder sometimes walking in the hall, getting your books in the basement, and nobody bothered me. I was lucky, but now it's so different. I hear the schools up here, the high schools, are having more trouble with racial abuse and violence and stuff, and teachers don't seem to get it. So I know how it feels. She created the scene, and she's hired to become a high school teacher, but she's got an instinct that very few people have. So she has to share a room, and the flag went up when you wrote this part with Crystal. Why did she have to share a room with somebody? And of course, you don't want somebody to see what you're doing because you don't want them to bring it back to somebody else. So how come the principal made her share a room with Crystal? And tell us more about Crystal.
well, this was something that came out of my own experience. I don't know what other communities are like, but when I started teaching in Arlington, we had just tons and tons of students in the school, and there weren't enough classrooms for
Mhm.
all the teachers to have their own. So my first year of teaching, I was like Sarah, I had to move between two classrooms, and all my belongings were on this little cart that I moved up and down between the two rooms. And so, this is the same situation that Sarah's in. I created the character of Crystal, who she another teacher she shares a room with, because I wanted a character who was sort of nosy and
Mhm.
opinionated and sort of judgmental about her, so that she would Sarah would have reasons to sort of feel uncomfortable. She's, obviously in any new job you want to create a good impression, and she was intimidated by this woman
Mhm.
who sort of always had her eye on her. So,
I was lucky because like I said, my principal stacked the deck. I had 36 discipline problems. And I walked in the first day and I knew I was in trouble. They were not violent, they were just nasty
mm,
and disrespectful, but they did their work. One day, one of the guys that we were 23 of us that started that year. He did all of us. And my friend Jeff said, "You're in charge. Let him know it." Because the assistant principal came in and said that my teaching skills were better than those that were teaching 25 years. He said I had an instinct. At which point I did something totally wrong. And they knew bad words, and I put all the bad words on the board that were in the dictionary, and I explained why I could use them, and I knew what they meant, and they couldn't. That was the last time I had to. It was tough, and the fact that I didn't quit was amazing, and they all passed the readings test somehow. But teaching, I felt, was a privilege, and I taught for 37 years. I started when I was very young. I wasn't even 18.
wow.
I graduated college. I was too smart. And I loved every minute of it. And I know because my students are not that much younger than me, they're in their 50s,
Yeah.
and they're on Facebook. And they remind me every day of how I tortured them and how they all try. It's a best profession. You got to admit, it's the best profession in the whole world. So, how did the students respond to her in a positive way? Then we're going to go back to the past with Henry, who I like.
Um, what did you say about
How did
Henry?
this? How did the students respond to her when
Well,
she started to teach? Because I mean, you're in a classroom, you have another teacher there, and you want to make sure that the kids respond, and yet you had a magic touch.
yeah, she had a good relationship with them. I think part of the thing that worked in her favor was she was only 10 years older than they were. And so, there was sort of a bond. She seemed young to them, and they could relate to her. But one of the things that Sarah did, and I guess probably I did too in my own teaching, was I tried to develop a rapport with kids where they felt like they could tell me anything,
Mhm.
to me about anything. And I wasn't one of those teachers that was going to frown and tell them to be quiet. And that kind of openness, I think, sets up a situation where teachers can become quite close to their students.
Well, I explained to my friends too. You want to get respect, you got to give it. The kids have to respect you, but you have to give it right back.
Right.
And I never ever, something in 30 years, I never had a problem with a class telling me that they just said I was tough. They just said, don't mess with the girl. But there was an African black teacher next door to me. She was the toughest teacher they ever had walk through the door. She taught me. And you know something, if you listen and you allow people to help you and don't think that they're criticizing, I'll never forget. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. So then you go back to the past several times, and we meet Henry. Tell us about the past and how she met Henry and what we were. At first we're not sure, but yeah, we are sure.
And
Henry,
well, um,
I like him.
Henry, Sarah's not, as I
Mhm.
mentioned before, she's not a very connected, popular girl in high
Yeah.
school, and she hangs out in this park near her house where she meets Henry when they're in high school, and he's a little bit kind of weird and different.
Yeah, that's why I liked him.
Yeah, and he's a transfer student from Texas, and he's got a twangy voice, and um, they become good friends. And from the onset, Henry has romantic feelings for Sarah, but she doesn't have them at that point for him. and she doesn't want to rock the boat of their friendship. She's afraid that
Mhm.
things go south in, like, a romantic relationship, that then she will have pretty much lost the only friend she has, and so she is careful not to do that. When she returns to Arlington 10 years later, Henry is also a teacher. He works in the junior high nearby, and they become friendly again.
That was so special. That is so special, and to have somebody in your own profession, that's hard too.
Yeah.
So he's so loyal to Sarah without ever getting away. Tell us more about that murder without giving it away that she witnessed at the beginning.
About the murder?
A murder, yeah.
Well, the night that she's out with Devlin, he's been taking her out in the car, basically, being smooth with her, trying to take advantage of her. And they're sitting out near the school, near this stream. There's grew up the right behind the high school. There was this steep hill down to this stream called Spout Run. And it was when the highway was built. The highway was built over the stream. The stream disappeared. But when I was a teenager, it was there. And so I had Sarah and Devlin like on a at the top of where the stream was, and Sarah hears someone scream, and she sits up and she looks around and she looks down and she sees a male and a female down in the right in the creek, struggling, fighting, and the female is clearly trying to get away from this guy, and at one point she shoves at him and loses her balance and falls
Yeah.
backwards into the creek and hits her head against some sharp stones. And right away, Sarah is certain that she's dead. And so Sarah's horrified by this, and um, she, Devlin, takes her hand and they run. And Sarah is the one that wants to go to the police to to share what they've seen. And Devlin talks her out of it. And the main reason that Devlin talks her out of it is that he's got a girlfriend and he's been seeing Sarah on the side,
Uh-huh.
and he doesn't want it to come out that he's been involved with someone other than his girlfriend.
Well, a lot of guys do that. I don't blame them, but still, it's hard when you see something that's wrong
Yeah,
to say, I know, to say something about it. And it happens all the time. I mean, I was the dean, so I had to report child abuse. And that probably is the hardest thing in the world. And I don't know if teachers where you live were, but where I live, if you didn't report it, you got arrested.
yeah,
You have to report it. And you don't know if it's the truth because it's not coming from the parents, it's coming from the kids.
right,
I'll never forget it. A little girl comes up to me, sixth grade, wasn't even my student. She said, Miss Swerdloff, my aunt raped me. Uh, I, I said, okay, you want to tell me? We will talk, and I reported it to the guidance counselor. I was right. She was abusing her while the mother was at work. The mother came in and she was angry. I said, you need to listen to what I'm saying. And she thanked me after she wanted to kill me. It's a, and you have to report it. And no matter what you do, one girl came into school one day in my class. She said, look at my arm. I said, I'll take care of that too. But you don't know who you're dealing with when you're reporting child abuse with a parent. They can come in and punch your lights out. And I've
true.
seen it. Yeah, I know. But if you don't do it, seriously. So, let's see. Who was the detective on this case? You have a major detective that I didn't mention, Giglio. I liked him.
Yeah, he was. They went to the detective.
Yeah,
Well, I should backtrack and just say that once Sarah starts trying to figure out something that she can pin on this guy
yeah.
that she's sure is the murderer, she gets some information, and so she then goes to talk to a woman named Janet Farley. Janet is the sister that was killed. And so Janet already had a relationship with this police detective
Yeah,
because when the girl's body was found and
yeah.
the police detective became involved with their family. And so Sarah went to Janet to enlist her help so that she could approach this detective with the information that she had.
That's the hardest thing in the world because are they going to believe you? Or you're just trying to get even with him because you like him and you don't want to. So before I forget, this is going to be interesting on Monday. Ouch. JJ Harrigan's going to be there with Goodbye Demons. He also deals with the school in a different type of way. On the 11th, I'm not sure. I graduated from Lehman College with a master's in reading and a PD, professional diploma, because my principal told me to go back to school and get it, which I did. Then I became the reading person. So Dr. Cavuto was my very first professor, and he does streams with me all the way back in, I won't say what year he did them with me. He's been doing them every single. On the 15th, we have award-winning author Michael Cowan with JB People's lottery ticket. How far would you go to get $40 million when you share a ticket and the person steals the money? On the 25th, New York Times author, one of the biggest authors in the world, Stephen Manchester, The Ledger, and you'll know the inside gate on the prisons. On the 29th, one of the greatest authors that wrote The Vanishes, Dick Belsky. And to start off August, none other than Tess Gerritsen and her new book, Shadow Friends, and Howard Wiggins, the number one interior decorator in the world. I'm too popular. And I am booked until the end of October. So if anybody wants to talk to me about a show, talk to me in November. So I mean, this started out as out of nowhere, and I was on Blog Talk, and then when Blog Talk went down last year, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. So I actually get to talk to the author. So without saying anything, what else would you like to share about the book? Because I'm not going to give away what you said you didn't want to give away. And there's a lot of tissues, by the way. But the ending, the last page, you got to read it, everybody. You got to read that last page because I cried when I read it and I said, such a beautiful way to end the book
Thank
without
you.
giving it. Yeah, that was
Um,
beautiful.
I guess one of the things that I just want to convey about this story is that it's sort of a murder mystery, but at the same time,
Yeah,
it's a story of a young girl who um, experiences some tragic losses and makes some very big mistakes. And it's her trying to sort of piece her life back together and come to terms with what she's lost and sort of forgive herself. And that sort of effort at redemption and finding a path forward after bad times is a big part of the book.
it's hard to deal with the past when something like that happens.
Yeah,
And I know because sometimes you get up in the middle of the night and go like, why did that happen? Why did that person do this to me? What? And you get angry for no reason at all. That's when you get the coffee and you relax. So, how did you? I have to ask this question. How did you come up with the title of the book? The minute you sent it, I picked it up and read it. I couldn't put it down. Then yesterday I said, let me go through this again because I could go through every chapter and ask questions. So, how did you come up with the title? And is there anything else you would like to share? And Ocean View is a great publisher. You got
yeah,
lucky. You got
yeah. I
really
did.
lucky.
I did. I've had very nice experience with them.
Yeah.
Um, I knew. I sat around with a friend. We were kicking around all kinds of titles for the
Mhm.
novel, you know, deciding what I should name it. I knew I wanted the word road in it because the controversy about the highway was a big part of the background. So I came up with road longer than memory because I guess in a way because the road which came and took over the past still exists. I mean, I travel on that road almost every
Mhm.
day now. That is still there, and it'll be there long after I'm gone, and all the memories that I hold of my past are gone. So I guess that's probably where it came from.
That's excellent because that title has multiple meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's that's just me. What can I say? And there's another question I had over here. Yeah. What are you going to write next? Is there a sequel to this coming?
No, there won't be a sequel. I don't really see these characters continuing, but
Okay.
I am currently working on a novel that I hope maybe Ocean View will be interested. It's the main character is also a teacher and also lives in Ireland.
That's good.
I stick with what I know, but it takes place. It also involves a murder and a kidnapping, but it takes place in the year between the 9/11 attack
Uh-huh.
and in DC, 1 year later, there were all these DC sniper killings where this guy was going around shooting people in
Uh-huh.
DC at random. So I chose that year because it's a year that I remember very well. And the main character in that story has two teenage daughters, as I did at that time. And so I just felt like there was a lot of material there that I could work with.
I'm reading a book that's called Bites. It's called Dead Bites and Dead Bites, and it's the author actually tells you how to commit serial killing murders for real. And I read the book. I'm reading it. I went halfway through, and I said to the publicist, "How do you allow somebody? How do you pick up a book like this? Because you can." He's very explicit. It's very well researched, and it scares me. And when I look, listen to the news, everything you're saying is true. It does happen. That is the sad part about it. It's the real world, to be honest. So I can't wait to get the next one. I have to say that my new book is at the publisher. Robin took it. Robin and Fidelity Publishing has been publishing my books, except not the last one, unfortunately. It's called When Lies Win. It's eight, I thought it was more. It's like 10 stories, and some of them are true. What happens when you tell a lie? What happens when you don't pay for your lie? You wind up as a face in the mirror forever until you repent. It's scary. It's horror.
Hmm.
It's a sequel to my book Inverted Reality that I'm not crazy about how the book came out. The stories are good, but I wrote true stories growing up. True stories, and four of the stories are true that really happened, and they're not. The endings tell you what happens if the person doesn't repent. They wind up in the mirror, going back and forth until they repent and decide that they can come back out. Most of them stay there forever. It's one of my best ones, and I've got Vincent Zandri reading it. New York Times author Vincent Zandri is going to give me his opinion, and several other people are reading it. But let's see. I'll see. It's only 70 pages. It's not long,
Sounds very
but
interesting.
yeah, I just sat down and figured out what the heck. So, where can everybody find out about you and your work? And by the way, I was telling my pharmacist about assistant about this. He gets it.
Um, my book Road Longer Than Memory and other books that I've written,
Yeah.
you can read about all of them on my website, which is melaniemccavewriter.com. And I also have a book trailer that's up on the website that
Oh,
you
nice.
can watch. And if any book clubs are interested in reading the book, I've posted a list of discussion questions that can be downloaded for any book clubs that want to take the book on.
Well, I'm going to put this as soon as I end. I'm not ending the stream yet. And I'm going to put this on, well, it's on YouTube. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn and everywhere. I'm getting good at this. And I guarantee what happens at the end, to be honest, because they're listening, I can see the number change. Restream does listen to everything I do. At the end, they tell me my analytics and they tell me how I did. And there's never been a case where I didn't get 100% in everything. So obviously, I must know what I'm doing. Let me just end the stream.